This is Seahawks Stories, 50th Season Edition, presented by Emerald City Athletics.
Welcome to another edition of Seahawks Stories, 50th Season Edition, and we've been waiting for this one. By the way, I'm Paul Moyer along with Dave Wyman. We've been waiting for this one because it's truly one of the nicest human beings we've ever met. We say nice guys do finish first, and it's Cortez Kennedy. The late Cortez Kennedy. We lost him way too soon, but his memories will live on forever. He's certainly immortalized here with Seattle, being in the Ring of Honor, a Hall of Famer. I think one of only two Seahawk players ever to win Defensive Player of the Year. Dave, I'll start a little bit, just my thoughts on him when we first got him, and just a little of his career.
Because you were coaching then.
I was coaching.
Yeah.
We drafted him in 1990. Let me do this. I remember I was coaching at the time. It was my first year as a defensive assistant coach. I just finished in 1989. And he was he was the first pick for us and the third pick in the NFL draft. I went and looked. Jeff George was the number one pick because I was trying to think who drafted somebody before him. They better be a Hall of Famer. There was no Hall of Famers before him. Wow. But I remember when he came out, and I think it was Tommy Brazier. I think it was Tom, maybe not Tommy Brazier yet. Maybe it was still George Dyer. They brought us the film, and we were watching him, and we went, oh, he's like Gumby for a big man. He was 300-plus pounds, but pretty short center of gravity guy. But the way he could move his shoulders but still keep his hips square, he was one of the most flexible big men I've ever seen, just completely dominant. But third overall pick in the 1990 NFL draft, played 11 seasons, all here, wanted to finish his career with Seattle, and he didn't play for anybody else, had opportunities. Started, 153 of 167 games, 8-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team All-Pro. As you know, that's the tough one to get. Second-team All-Pro 2 times. The Defensive Player of the Year in 1992. Dave, I used Kenny Easley and Cortez. Kenny had such a phenomenal year that year. 10 interceptions. We were a great defense. In 1992, we were 8th in the NFL in defense. Probably could have been number 1 if we had some help with the offense.
You're talking about the 84 defense you were on?
We were on 84, but talking about 1992, we probably should have been the number 1 defense if we had an offense.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing this to Cortez Kennedy. Cortez that year was the most dominant player I've ever seen in one season. He had 14 sacks as an interior lineman. He wasn't just double teamed, he was triple teamed. And we had a decent defensive line, but they were aging, Joe Nash and Jeff Bryant and Jacob Green. So Cortez was our guy for the future. But in 92, I spent hours every Tuesday just trying to design blitzes to free him up one-on-one. And Tommy Brazier was our defensive line coach at that point in 92. And he and I would go through all the blitzes he liked, and then my job was to figure out how we're going to cover it. And it was wildly successful, though, along the way. He even had 3 interceptions, Dave, 2 of them in one season towards the end of his career. And really one of the great resumes of all time. You got to be behind him, or I guess as the linebacker, and told him, Lenny, what was the other one? Ricky, left, right?
That really fooled people. Any word that started with L or R is what we used.
But just your first memories of Cortez, and just an overview there.
Well, since you bring that up, I remember George Dyer used to call him Lenny because he liked going left. And there's a couple of plays that I remember very specifically. And but what would happen is we would have the tendencies, and if we're slanting defensive linemen, I was told, okay, this formation we're going right, this formation we're going left. And so Cortez made this unbelievable play, but he shook me off. He was like a pitcher. He was like, no. And I'm like, all right, Lenny. So we go left. He makes a play. And so I go to the sidelines, and Tom Catlin said, why'd you go left on that one? We're supposed to go right. I said, because Cortez wanted to. And he made a play. So yeah, it was he was just, and after I said that, and Tom Catlin was a very detailed coach. But after I said that, he was like, okay.
He did. I remember Lenny, and he, for those who don't know him, and there's some YouTube videos out there, Google them, Bing them, whatever search engine you want nowadays. Go find. There's actually a really good one the Seahawks did a few years back after he passed away, and just some of the people here, Chuck Arnold too, Eric Kennedy, and others, talking about him. He really was the sweetest human being.
Yeah.
I never saw him mad. He had that infectious laugh. Even, I was the secondary coach, and I spent some time with him, but I wasn't his position coach. I wasn't with him every single, hour of the day. But every time I saw him after, he was done playing, I was done coaching, he would just give you the biggest bear hug, Southern smile, laugh, and always wanted to talk about our time as well. There's always a story that would he bring up. What were some of your favorite stories, Dave?
Yeah, I think my favorite Cortez story is, like you said, he was like a big kid. He really was. He was the way he behaved was kind of like a child. Like he was the only guy I've ever met that loved double days. He loved coming to camp and being around the guys. And I guess he couldn't sleep because he would like play pranks on people all the time. And one of the times was me. I got up to go to the bathroom, and I'm coming back, and I lay back down in my bed, and Cortez jumps out of the closet and scares the crap out of me. And I was just like, oh! And, he thought that was the funniest thing. Next day, he's telling everybody in the locker room how he scared me. And I'm like, what are you doing up at 2, 3 a.m. during double days? I mean, he just had an endless amount of energy, and he just loved it. But like anybody else, I probably would have punched or something. But because it was Cortez Kennedy, I was like, okay, he's screwing around. But plus, he probably would have kicked my butt. But anyway, he just loved being around the guys. He loved football. He never complained about anything. And he was just, and he kept things light, I remember one time we had a really intense NFLPA meeting. And so Cortez was kind of like, he wasn't too into it. So it was James Jones. And so James went on this big speech about, if, after your playing days, who are you going to call? And he kept going and kept saying, who are you going to call? Who are you going to call? And all of a sudden Cortez goes, Ghostbusters. And then the whole room just started laughing. But he had a way of keeping things light. And then, some of the other stories were that, like, I pretty much tried to keep him happy. Like, I had my rules to follow that Tom Catlin had. But, if Cortez wanted to go a certain way, and that took a while. At first, I was like, no, we got to run it this way. But then after a while, I learned that, okay, if Tez wants to go that way, that's the way he's going to go. So, yeah. And, I don't know how to describe, like you did, like about his feet and how he bends and everything. It just looked to me like he went wherever he wanted to go. And he was just so powerful. Now, he wasn't a body beautiful guy.
No. He wasn't lifting a lot of weights, working on that figure.
I don't know if he even lifted weights.
No, I don't either.
Yeah. So, it was ridiculous how powerful he was and how quick he was. But you mentioned it earlier. I mean, it's hard to get sacks on the inside. He got 14 of them. I mean, that's like Aaron Donald type of sack numbers. And yeah, he was just incredibly dominant.
I remember his first year, 1990. We weren't sure what to do with him yet. And we went to a 4-3 after the 88 season. So 89, I think, was maybe the first year we had done some of that. But we were really committed to it in 1990. We just weren't sure. He's a rookie. He wasn't great technique yet. He was strong. We saw, great get off, wiggle. Go watch some of his highlights and some of his sacks. I mean, he's even jumping over guys. For a guy like him that people think he wasn't athletic, I go, no, he was incredibly athletic. He may not have been a fast 40 guy. It really wasn't until 1992. And part of that was Chuck Knox was our head coach in 90 and 91. We weren't really allowed to blitz a lot. So why is that important? Well, because for us to blitz, we're trying to get one-on-one matches so somebody can win that individual battle. It wasn't like you were selling sending one more than they could block. We want to send 5 guys, still keep a guy in the middle of the field. And so we didn't get to do a lot of that under Chuck. When 1992 came along, Tom Flores was a head coach, and that Raider part was, no, we're bump and run, man-to-man, go ahead, let's get pressure on the quarterback. But we blitzed a ton in 92. And matter of fact, I think we were number 1 or 2 in third down conversions on defense, stopping teams. And a lot of it is, I'm serious, I was calling blitzes almost every time because Cortez, if you could get him one-on-one, there was nobody in the league who could block him. Matter of fact, really even a double team, they couldn't block him. He was often triple teamed. And so, Dave, you remember this. This was the first time a bear front we introduced in 1992, and that was Tommy Brazier, defensive line coach, and we were talking about how to scheme things up where you could get him one-on-one with the center and give him space to maneuver because he could bull rush you. He could, he had every move in the world to beat somebody, particularly a center. So 14 sacks. And I think that was the first 2 years, just our scheme didn't allow him to be all he could be. And then in 92, the one of the great, years of anybody. But what do you remember that year? Do you remember much about 92? And was it easier playing behind him than other defensive linemen?
Well, I mean, this might be a stretch, but I've said that I could have maybe made the Pro Bowl if I played behind him my entire career. I would have loved that because he would wipe out 2 gaps, there's a picture that Corky Truan took that was really cool where it's against the Giants. Remember we took that trip in 1992 and I remember Bill Parcells was calling the game, and he said, yeah, Wyman and Cortez are running this little game here where, he'd go left and I'd go right and vice versa. And that was the Lenny and I guess it was Ricky that we did for Ricky. Right? Like that fooled anybody. But yeah, and it's a great picture by Corky because both of our feet are off the ground, and it's all because of Cortez. And, and I remember Bill Parcells talking about that little game because we would kind of, like, okay. And I remember laying on the ground, he grabs me by my jersey and just picks me up off the ground. And I said, I guess that was my turn because he was making every play. And then, every once in a while I would send him, one way and then I'd go the other. And, I got to eat every once in a while with it, but mostly he sucked up every tackle. So, yeah, it was just, it was amazing just watching him. I remember times in film just going, look at Cortez. Like, how is he doing that? It was hard to explain, and I think you went a long ways to explaining it, like his bend and his power and everything, but never saw him in the weight room. And, it was just a God-given talent that he had.
Even in college, when he was at University of Miami, when you go watch some of their film, he was just a man amongst boys. Now, they had some great players, for sure. And he had this very low center of gravity. He didn't have real long legs. He's surprisingly much taller than he appeared. When you'd stand next to him, you go, wow, I didn't know he's taller than me. But he looked short just because of the way his body mass was. He had some pretty good friends, too, around the league. He was beloved. I think you remember in 92, it was Jerome Brown.
Yeah.
And it was a dear friend of him, a former teammate. And he passed away. And I remember Tez changed his number that year to Jerome Brown's number, and it affected him emotionally. I think it inspired him. I'm not sure, but do you remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. And he kind of kept it quiet, but was it 99? I think he was 96.
He was, yeah.
And that year he played for Jerome Brown, which was really cool. And I didn't really know that he had that kind of a relationship with him, but yeah, that meant a lot to him, and I think that inspired him a lot of the times.
Dave, you had something again. I think goes to show you the connection you had with Cortez Kennedy. We tragically lost Tez in 2017. I remember that news. There's been a few of them where I went, what? One of them was Dave Brown when he was at Texas Tech coach, and he'd been gone from the Seahawks for a few years. The Tez was another one. It just shocked me. Mid-40s, way too young daughter. But you had the opportunity in 2019. The Seahawks inducted Paul Allen into the Ring of Honor, And when that happens, they bring back all the other Ring of Honor people there. And obviously, Tez was no longer with us. And you got to represent Tez. I'm actually looking at a picture here where you're wearing that. What was that? I mean, was that emotional for you?
Yeah, it really was. It was. I didn't expect that at all. And his daughter was supposed to come, and I think something happened, or she had a schedule problem or something. I was so honored. Like, I get to go out and finally show, how much this guy means to me. And you know what's funny is after he passed, there was lots of people that came up to me and said he was my best friend.
I know.
Chuck Arnold.
I know.
Chuck Arnold, the president of the Seahawks, him and Tez had this amazing relationship. I think he lived with Chuck for a while. Eric Kennedy.
Yeah.
EK. I mean, it was just like, he was one of those guys that, like, there was a lot of people that came up and said he was my best friend.
Well,
so that's kind of, I hope that happens when I die. I mean, that you have a lot of people that you feel like you connected with. And that's to me, I thought it was just very indicative of the kind of person that Cortez Kennedy, I mean, we're sitting here talking about all the things that he brought to the table on the football field, but off the field, he was just an unbelievable person. And yeah, it was, but that moment right there was like, at first I was like, really? I mean, am I the guy to represent him? And yeah, I mean, I had a great connection with him, and we had a lot of funny stories, and used to hang out with him on the road. There was one time where we both snuck out of camp together and went, and I think he went one way and I went the other. And, yeah, but I mean, yeah, he was just one of those guys that you just connected with on and off the field.
I was watching a YouTube channel, kind of prepping for this, trying to remember all the stories, from Tez, and I was with him really for, I guess, 4 years, 90 through 94. But there was this, they did stories, I believe it's on the Seahawks website, or you can find it. And it was just that. I mean, Chuck Arnold was talking about that Tez would call him 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, he wasn't president at the time. Chuck started, from the ground floor here. It's a great success story. Eric Kennedy's been, the equipment guy for as long as I've been here. He wasn't the main guy, and same thing. Tez would call him, late at night, and he would listen to him. And I don't know if I was shocked, Dave. How many people felt Tez was such a good friend, and how many friends that Tez had. And that's why I say he had 3 or 4 unbelievably dominant years. Certainly, I would say 92 through 95, maybe 96, but 92, 93, 94, 95 he was. But he had a lifetime of dominant personality and making people feel good. He reminds me a little bit of Shaq. If he sees somebody on the side, he's going to go talk to that kid. He's going to give them something. And it wasn't about money for him, though money he did talk about a little bit. He knew he was one of the very best. So, he certainly was like, I want to be paid for that. And rightfully so, he deserved it. But, man, he is... I think of all the Ring of Honor people, the history of the Seahawks, and I've said I think Walter Jones had the greatest career because he was dominant for so long, right? I mean, he really was. I think Bobby Wagner, when he gets in, he's getting a real long career, not as dominant. Kenny Easley had, that couple of years that were incredible. But Tez, for a short period of time, dominant, man, I mean, a 2-year window, I don't know if anybody was more dominant at their position than Cortez. He was truly considered the very best. It was kind of like Aaron Donald. There really wasn't a debate on it. I don't know if that's what you remember or your thoughts on, as we try to pick who the greatest one of all time is. That's a tough one. But Tez certainly had a year or two where I don't know if you can have a better year.
Yeah, he really was unblockable, and that's not an exaggeration. You mentioned the money part. There was a few times, and I think it was just to like his selected friends. He bragged about how much money he had, but he didn't do it in a way that was like, "Oh, I'm better than you." It was more that I'm being responsible with my money, And he would tell me the number, and I was like, "Well, that's really good, Tez. Good for you." That was the. I think a lot of people would think, oh, what a jerk, why is he bragging about it? But no, he was proud of himself, because he came from humble beginnings, and he did a good job with his money. He really did. And so, he would tell me that, and I would go, that's nice, Tess. Good for you, man. I truly am happy for you because, number one, you deserve it. But another really quick story. There used to be this thing. There was a golf tournament at the end of the year that was phenomenal. Like it was the Payne Stewart. So you had to wear the Payne Stewart like little knickers and everything. So they'd bring 2 players from every team, and you had to dress up in these hideous outfits, that looked like Payne Stewart. And so one year it was Paul Scanzi, but then the next year it was Cortez. It was me and Cortez. And Tez, he looked pretty funny in those little knickers, and and he had the big shirt and everything. And he had never played golf before, but he went out there and. But I remember the first thing he did, he goes to the clubhouse and he buys these spikes, like golf cleats or whatever. And and by the way, it was at what's the place in Jacksonville with the island green,
the TPC or a Players Championship.
Yeah, whatever that.
I should know this as a golfer.
I was going to say that's why I'm leaning on you.
And really, I'm thinking, why was I invited?
You were into golf. I was terrible. Cortez was terrible. I remember one time he hit a ball that went and hit the cameraman that was trying to film the whole thing. And then, he buys these big spikes, I think size 16. And so he's stomping on the greens. It was called Sawgrass. TPC at Sawgrass. Yep. And so like he would reach down to get his ball. He would pick his ball up and then he would leave his foot planted and just tear up the green. And there was all these people coming after him trying to fix it and everything. But I had so much fun with him because there was no pressure. And what you would do was play with a senior tour member. So we had I think it was Kenny Stills. He was a local guy from Tacoma, and just had a blast with him. And mostly that was just a party. But like he they paid you, it was $2,500. That was a lot of money back in 1990, 91. And then they flew you first class, and then they put you up in this beautiful hotel, and then you went out and played golf for 2 days and got a chance to I remember, there was a lot of guys in the NFL that I knew that you got to connect with and everything. But that was such a fun 3-day weekend to spend with Cortez, and he just and he didn't care that he wasn't a good golfer or anything. He just went out and he was just having fun. He's over talking to people. He talked to everybody. He was just a gem of a human being.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's been gone as long as he has. And I remember the money part too. It's funny the way you described that, because he was very humble about it. As a matter of fact, he wasn't about flashing anything.
No.
He wasn't buying clothes. He wasn't buying jewelry. He wasn't buying expensive cars. I mean, he had a daughter and a family. And he said, look, my job's to take care of them, and he did. I mean, he appreciated money. And I think it was more of this is the way you're supposed to do it. Yeah. Don't be out spending all your money, man. You already have respect as an NFL football player. Have respect when you leave this game and make sure you have money, that people look at you and say, hey, job well done. And again, man, I can't say enough great things about Cortez. He was such a great ambassador. We still see the Ring of Honor guys like Dave Craig and Steve Largent and Jacob Green when they come back. It was always great to see Tez. And, again, his smile would light up a room. So not sure if you got anything else, Dave.
Man, I think that's pretty much it. One time we were in a cab in Dallas, and the cabbie told me to put my seatbelt on. And so Cortez started laughing, and he told the whole story like, he called you boy. And so he was calling me boy. That was a stupid story. Never mind. Anyway, he was he called me boy. Like, he was like, did you hear that, cabbie? He called you boy. And I'm like, no, he didn't, Tez. He's like, yeah, I heard him call you boy. And then he would because he did the seatbelt thing, like, put your seatbelt on, boy. And I'm like, he didn't say boy. He goes, yes, he did. And then he, would call me boy. And that lasted for 2 weeks or something. But yeah, he was a funny guy. And I can't emphasize enough the part about him bragging about his money. It was charming.
Yes.
It really was. It was like, and I think anybody that was friends with Tez would go, good for you, man.
Yeah.
That's really cool. It's good that you've done that, because there's a lot of guys that went out. I mean, didn't somebody buy a dolphin one time?
That might have been
beyond
me.
Probably a
they
receiver.
Were just starting getting money. No.
I mean, there was lots of money wasted, no question about it. And Tez just wanted to make sure everybody knew that he's being responsible, which was cool.
Well, truly, nice guys can finish first, because he didn't have a mean bone in his body. But when he was on the field, he was the most dominant defensive lineman, certainly during his prime. Had a great career, Ring of Honor, for the 12s to see, Hall of Famer, well deserved. And again, we appreciate you listening to another edition of the Seahawks 50th season, and no better person really to talk about than Cortez Kennedy.